Individuals often ask us about standardized field sobriety tests and whether the individual should do standardized field sobriety tests if an officer requests them. What would you tell an individual? Should they be doing those standardized field sobriety tests?
Because field sobriety tests are not mandatory, if given the opportunity, which you normally will be, you should refuse those tests, because what we're taking into consideration is what evidence the state has to prove that you are DUI. And the officers are trained by their participant manual through the National Highway Safety and Traffic Administration that the purpose of field sobriety tests are essentially a divided attention test. They are trying to determine whether you have control of yourself as you normally would unless you were impaired. So if you are able to take away some of the evidence that they have at their hand to convict you, then absolutely you should do that.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, generally a DUI arrest is going to be anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, but the bulk of that investigation is the standardized field sobriety test. And so if you refuse to do standardized field sobriety tests, the officer's investigation really shrinks down to probably less than 5 minutes of body cam to convince a jury of 12 individuals to believe that your clearness of mind was affected so you couldn't safely operate that vehicle. And officers in that NHTSA manual that you were discussing specifically says that the purpose of field sobriety tests is to provide a non-arbitrary decision to arrest an individual. It gives them more evidence to prove the case. And so the converse of that is that if they do not do field sobriety tests, they do not have enough evidence or specific articulable facts to arrest an individual. So do they have probable cause to place an individual under arrest without field sobriety tests? It becomes a lot more difficult for the state to prove that.
Absolutely, and that's a common thing too. People think just because you refuse field sobriety tests, well, you're not going to be arrested. And that's not necessarily always true. The officer still could have the probable cause necessary without the field sobriety test, but it's still one less thing that they're going to be able to point to in court and say, look at this person, look how they look how they're walking, look how they're talking. That's why we believe they're DUI.
Yeah, and if you refuse field sobriety tests, most likely you're going to be arrested. If you do field sobriety tests, you're going to be arrested. The difference is that there's more evidence to convict you of DUI, not just arrest you for DUI when you complete those field sobriety tests.
Absolutely.